In the middle of a violent snowstorm, a lone biker named Mike forces his old Harley down an empty highway, ice cutting through the night. His dog, Buddy, suddenly explodes in panic, dragging him off the road and into the frozen woods. What they discover stops his heart: a crashed van, half buried in snow, and inside, three small children, freezing, barely breathing, completely abandoned. With seconds running out, Mike must choose: ride away and survive, or risk everything in the storm to save them. But what he doesn't know yet, saving these children will make him a target, because the man who left them to die is already on his way back. And what came next would rewrite that frozen night, turning fear, loss, and ice into a miracle that echoed through the town for years to come. Ridgeview County was a quiet mountain town, and winter always hit it harder than other places. On this night, the weather was especially bad. Snow fell thick and fast, covering the streets, the roofs, and the signs. The wind was strong enough to shake the trees, and the temperature was so low that metal tools froze if left outside for just a few minutes. Most people stayed inside their houses, trying to keep warm. Cars did not drive. Stores closed early. It was the kind of night when everyone avoided being outdoors. But Mike Miller did not have that choice. Mike was 45 years old, tall, strong, and looked tired most days. His short dark hair showed a few gray strands. He had a rough face with a faded scar across his left eyebrow. He wore a thick leather jacket, old jeans, and heavy boots. Mike used to be a soldier and had served in the Middle East. He had seen many things that still haunted him, and he sometimes woke up at night sweating from bad memories. After returning home, life had been difficult. He worked long hours fixing cars at Jake's auto shop and delivered auto parts in the evening to earn extra money. His rent was high, bills never seemed to end, and he was constantly worried about money. His only close companion was Buddy, a golden retriever mix he had adopted 2 years earlier. Buddy was large, with warm brown eyes and a gentle face. He was brave, loyal, and always stayed close to Mike. Mike talked to Buddy every day, sometimes joking, sometimes venting. Buddy listened quietly and stayed by his side without judgment. Tonight, Mike and Buddy were struggling through the storm on Mike's old Harley Davidson Road King. The bike shook in the harsh wind, but the engine kept going. Snow hit Mike's helmet and visor, making it hard to see more than a few meters ahead. The road was slippery, and the wind pushed the bike sideways. Mike gripped the handlebars tightly, trying not to lose control. In the metal carrier attached to the side of the Harley, Buddy was wrapped in a thick blanket. The dog shivered from the cold, but he stayed alert. His ears moved, trying to catch sounds through the heavy wind. Mike looked over at him. "Just one more delivery, bud," Mike said loudly over the noise. "Then we go home and try to stay warm." Buddy gave a short, teeth whine as if answering him. The delivery should have been an easy job. Mike needed the extra cash, so he decided to do it, even though the storm was getting worse. The small package in his jacket pocket was not heavy, and the warehouse was only a few miles away. But the weather turned dangerous faster than he expected. As Mike rode deeper into the forested area, Buddy suddenly became restless. The dog pushed his nose through the blanket, stood up in the carrier, and barked sharply. "What is it?" Mike asked. Buddy barked again, louder, then scratched at the metal bars. "Buddy, calm down," Mike said, trying to control the bike. But Buddy refused. He barked over and over, pulling his weight toward the trees. Mike frowned. Buddy rarely behaved like this unless something was seriously wrong. All right, Mike muttered. He slowed the Harley and parked it near a street lamp that flickered weakly. Buddy jumped out of the carrier and immediately ran toward the tree line. "Buddy, get back here," Mike called, but Buddy kept running. Mike grabbed his flashlight and chased after him. The snow was deep and slowed him down. The wind made it hard to breathe, and ice stung his cheeks. He kept calling for Buddy, but the storm swallowed most sounds. "Buddy, stop!" After a minute of struggling through the snow, Mike finally saw Buddy up ahead, standing beside a ditch. The dog was barking nonstop, his tail stiff and his body tense. Mike hurried over and shined his flashlight into the ditch. His breath caught. A white van was lying on its side, almost buried under the snow. The windows were frosted over, and the front windshield had a long crack. The vehicle looked like it had crashed hours ago. "Hello?" Mike shouted. "Is anyone in there?" No answer. He climbed down carefully and moved to the back door. It was frozen shut. He hit it with his shoulder several times until it finally gave way. The door opened with a loud creak. At first, he saw blankets. Then he saw small shapes. 3 children lay inside the van. 2 girls and 1 boy. All of them looked very young, maybe 2 or 3 years old. Their faces were pale, their lips almost blue, and they were barely moving. One girl wasn't moving at all. Mike felt his chest tighten. Oh no, not kids. Please, no. He quickly removed his leather jacket and wrapped all 3 children inside it. Their bodies were ice cold. He touched the smallest girl's cheek, and she didn't react. "Come on, sweetheart, stay with me," he said softly. Buddy crawled inside the van and gently licked the children's faces. His body heat made a small difference against the freezing air. "Good boy," Mike whispered. "Help me keep them warm." He lifted the 3 children together, holding them close to his chest. They were so light he could feel their bones. He looked around to make sure no adult was nearby. There was no one, only the storm. Carrying the children was difficult because the snow was high and the wind kept pushing him, but he moved as fast as he could. Several times he slipped, but he tightened his grip on the children each time. Buddy stayed at his heels, barking to encourage him. By the time they reached the Harley again, Mike's hands were numb, and his legs felt like they might give out. He placed the children carefully inside his jacket and zipped it up to keep them against his body heat. Buddy jumped into his carrier again, watching the children closely. Mike got on the Harley, but the engine hesitated. "Come on," he said through clenched teeth. "Please work." The engine sputtered and slowly came to life, the beat. Wheels skidded on the icy road, but the bike moved forward. Mike held the children close and whispered, "Hang on, I'm getting you out of this." The storm swallowed them again as the Harley pushed forward through the night. The old garage stood alone near the edge of Ridgeview County. It had once belonged to a small repair business that closed down years earlier, so the building was empty except for a few tools, an old metal shelf, and a dusty mattress in the corner. Mike sometimes used the place to rest during long delivery nights when he didn't want to ride home in the dark. It wasn't warm, but it blocked the wind, and the walls were thick enough to keep out some of the cold. Tonight, it was the only shelter he could think of that he could reach quickly. The Harley struggled as it moved through the deep snow. The wheels slipped again and again, and at times the bike nearly tipped over. Mike leaned his weight, trying to keep control while the wind pushed against them like a giant hand. He held the 3 children tightly inside his jacket, feeling how cold their bodies were. They barely moved. Their breathing was shallow, soft, and uneven. Each little sound made worry rise in Mike's chest. Buddy stayed alert inside the carrier, watching the children with wide, anxious eyes. Every few seconds he let out a low whine, as if asking Mike to hurry. "I know, Bud," Mike said, voice tight. "I'm going as fast as I can." When he finally saw the dark shape of the garage through the storm, he felt a small wave of relief. He parked the Harley right next to the entrance, kicked the stand down, and hurried to push the sliding metal door open. Cold air rushed into the garage, mixing with the even colder storm outside. Mike carried the children inside first, with Buddy running at his heels. Once inside, Mike laid the children on the dusty mattress. He worked fast. His movements were clumsy from the cold, but he forced his hands to stay steady. He grabbed an old kerosene heater in the corner, checked the tank, and sighed with relief when he saw there was still some fuel left. The heater took a few tries to start, but after a minute, a weak orange flame appeared. The heat was minimal, but it was better than nothing. Mike returned to the children. He unwrapped his leather jacket and checked each child one by one. The smallest girl, the one who had barely moved, lay limp. She had light brown hair, soft and tangled, and a tiny face that looked too pale to be healthy. Her little hands were stiff. Mike placed 2 fingers near her lips. Her breath was faint, but still there. The boy, who looked slightly older, had short blonde hair and round cheeks. He let out weak cries, tired and frightened. His eyes opened halfway, revealing a dull blue color before closing again. The last girl had dark hair and long eyelashes. Her body trembled softly, and she made small noises that sounded like confusion and discomfort. Mike felt a strong, painful pressure in his chest. "Come on, kids," he whispered. "Stay with me." Buddy climbed onto the mattress and curled next to them, pressing his warm body against their sides. His heavy tail rested gently across their feet. His breath made small clouds in the cold air. "Good boy," Mike said quietly. "Keep them warm." He grabbed a stack of old towels from a shelf, shook the dust off, and placed them around the kids to help trap the heat. Minutes passed slowly. The wind outside hammered against the walls of the garage like it wanted to break in. Snow whistled through small cracks, and every sound made the air feel even colder. Mike kept checking the children's breathing. He rubbed their tiny hands and feet to warm them, careful not to hurt their fragile skin. He removed their wet clothing and wrapped them in dry towels in his jacket. He held the smallest girl against his chest, hoping his body heat would help. For a moment, he closed his eyes and tried to think clearly. What happened to them? Why was the van crashed? Where were the parents? But none of those answers mattered at this moment. All he cared about was keeping them alive. After about 20 minutes, the heater warmed the air enough that Mike could see the children's skin gaining a bit of color. Not much, but enough to give him hope. Buddy stayed completely still, only lifting his head occasionally to check on the kids. Just a little longer, Mike murmured. We've got you. As he worked, he noticed something around the smallest girl's wrist, a tiny bracelet with plastic beads. The beads spelled out a name, Emma. He looked at the boy. His shirt had a faint marker stain on the inside tag with the letters N-O, probably the start of a name. Noah, Mike guessed. Then he checked the last girl. Her small boot had a faded sticker on the inside with the letters L-M. It could have been anything, but Mike decided. Lily, that fits. He said the names softly. Emma, Noah, Lily, you're going to be okay. The kids didn't respond, but saying their names made them feel less like strangers and more like people he needed to protect. As the temperature inside the garage improved, Mike finally felt like he could take a breath. But then he heard a sound outside, something sharp hitting metal. He straightened immediately. Buddy lifted his head and growled. Easy, boy, Mike whispered, but he felt the same tension. He walked to the door and slowly opened it a crack. The storm made it hard to see anything clearly. Snow blew sideways, hiding shapes and shadows. Then he saw a flickering light, a flashlight. Someone was out there, walking through the storm. Mike stiffened. A person walking in this weather was unusual. It could mean trouble. It could mean danger. But it could also mean help. The light grew closer. Mike stepped away from the door, holding a wrench as a weapon, just in case. A figure approached and finally stepped inside the garage, pushing the door open just enough to enter. The person was a woman, soaked from the snow, breathing hard. Her coat was thin, and her boots were covered in ice. She looked exhausted and scared. She pulled down her hood. Her dark, brown hair was wet and stuck to her red cheeks. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear and worry. She appeared to be in her early 30s, with a thin frame and shaking hands. I saw the motorcycle outside, she said, her voice weak. Is someone here? I need help. Please. Mike didn't lower the wrench yet. Who are you? He asked. My name is Rachel, she said, panting. Rachel Moore. I'm looking for my children. 3 of them. They disappeared. The van, the crash. Mike felt a cold shock run through his body. Buddy barked once, loudly. Rachel heard the sound and looked toward the mattress. When she saw the 3 small bodies wrapped in towels, she gasped and covered her mouth with her hand. My babies, she whispered, voice cracking. Emma, Noah, Lily. She ran toward them and fell to her knees beside the mattress, touching each child gently as tears fell from her eyes. Mike stood frozen, watching her. He could tell by her reaction, by the way her hands trembled over the children, that she wasn't lying. This was their mother. Rachel looked up at Mike, face wet with tears. Are they alive? Mike nodded slowly. They're breathing, but they were almost frozen when I found them. Rachel let out a shaky breath and touched Emma's forehead. Thank you for saving them. Mike didn't know what to say. He simply nodded. The garage felt warmer now, not because of the heater, but because the children were no longer alone. But outside, the storm continued to rage, and none of them knew what dangers still waited beyond the garage walls. For now, though, they were safe, at least for the moment. The garage felt slightly warmer as the old heater continued to burn, but the cold was still sharp enough that every breath made a faint cloud in the air. The wind outside stayed strong and loud, hitting the metal walls again and again. Snow piled up at the doorway, slowly blocking the bottom edge. Rachel sat on the dusty mattress, holding Emma in her arms. Her hands shook as she examined the little girl's face and body. Noah and Lily lay beside her, wrapped in towels and pressed close to Buddy, who stayed curled around them like a living blanket. Buddy's ears moved constantly, listening to every sound, inside the garage and outside. Mike stood near the heater, rubbing his hands together to warm them. He watched Rachel carefully. He still didn't know her, and the situation felt intense and fragile, but he didn't see any sign she was dangerous. She looked too tired, too scared, too focused on the children to be anything else. Rachel wiped her eyes with her sleeve. They're so cold. I didn't know if I'd ever see them again. Her voice cracked near the end. Tell me what happened, Mike said, keeping his tone steady. I need to know what I'm dealing with. Rachel nodded slowly. She looked physically weak, like she could pass out at any moment, but she forced herself to speak. We were driving earlier today, she began. My husband, well, he used to be my husband. We were having problems. He was angry. He always gets angry when he loses money. He has a gambling issue. Mike stayed silent, letting her continue. The storm got worse. He started yelling. He hit the steering wheel over and over. The kids cried, and that made him even angrier. Then the van started sliding on the road. We hit something, maybe ice, and we crashed. Rachel swallowed hard, wiping more tears away. I was thrown out of the van. I hit the ground. By the time I got up, he was gone. The kids were gone. The van was gone. Everything was gone. Mike slowly exhaled. Gone how? You mean he drove off? Yes, she whispered. Or, I think he did. I don't know. I couldn't see clearly. The snow was too heavy. I kept shouting for the kids, but my voice didn't reach far. I started walking. I kept walking for hours. I thought maybe they were somewhere nearby, maybe stranded. I didn't know where else to go. Her shoulders shook. She hugged Emma tighter. Mike crouched down near the mattress. Do you think he meant to leave them? Rachel lowered her head. She didn't answer immediately. I don't want to believe that, she said softly. But I don't know anymore. A long silence filled the garage. Mike looked at the children. Their breathing was steadier now, thanks to the heater, the blankets, and Buddy's warmth. Their faces had a bit more color, though they still looked sick and weak. We need to keep them warm and awake, Mike said, and we need to give them small amounts of water when they can drink. Rachel nodded. I know. I used to be a nursing assistant. Before the kids, I worked in a clinic. That surprised Mike, but it also made things easier. Good. Then you know what cold exposure can do. Yes, she replied. They still need medical care as soon as possible. I'll call for help once the storm slows enough for a signal, Mike said. Right now there's no reception. Rachel looked around the garage and rubbed her arms. This place, is it safe? It's the safest thing we've got right now, Mike answered honestly. And warmer than out there. Buddy shifted his weight, pressing closer to Noah and Lily. The kids let out faint sounds, but didn't wake. Rachel looked at Buddy. Your dog is amazing. Mike let a small smile appear. Yeah, he's saved me more than once. Tonight makes it one more time. Rachel breathed deeply, trying to calm herself. I'm sorry if I startled you earlier. I thought I'd lost them forever. It's fine, Mike said. Anyone would react like that. The heater flickered, making the light in the room dance slightly. Mike checked it to make sure it had enough fuel. It did, but only enough for a few more hours. They would have to ration it. Try to get some rest, he told her. You look like you're about to pass out. Rachel shook her head. No, I need to stay awake. I need to watch them. Mike understood the feeling, but he also knew exhaustion could lead to mistakes. I'll watch them. You sleep for a bit. Rachel hesitated. Her eyes were heavy. Her body swayed slightly. She finally said, If I fall asleep, wake me if anything changes. I will. She lay down on the mattress beside the children, keeping a hand on Noah's back. Her eyes closed almost instantly. Mike realized she really had walked for hours in the storm. He sat against the wall near the heater, watching the room carefully. Buddy lifted his head and looked at Mike. Mike nodded at him. Keep them company, boy. Buddy lowered his head again, pressing his warm fur against the children. For nearly 30 minutes, Mike stayed awake, listening to the wind outside and the tiny breaths inside the garage. He checked the children's hands, their faces, and their bodies regularly. The smallest girl, Emma, moved just slightly in her sleep. It was a tiny movement, but enough to make him sigh with relief. After a while, Rachel woke suddenly with a gasp. She sat up fast, eyes wide. The kids, are they okay? They're still breathing, Mike said. You needed the rest. Rachel rubbed her forehead. How long was I out? Maybe half an hour. She checked them one by one, carefully feeling their skin. Then she looked up with watery eyes. Thank you, Mike nodded. We still need help, she said quietly. We need a doctor. A real one. I know. But going outside now is dangerous. The roads are closed. I can't even get my bike through that snow again. We wait until the weather improves. Rachel hugged herself. I'm scared. Mike looked at her directly. I won't let anything happen to them. Or to you. She held his gaze for a moment, then nodded slowly. Time passed. The storm outside kept beating against the garage. Once the wind was so strong that it made the walls vibrate. Mike stood up quickly, checking the structure. It held, but barely. Rachel sat up again and said, "Can we try calling now?" Mike checked his phone. No signal. "Damn it," he muttered. Rachel wrapped an extra towel around herself. What if he's out there? What if he comes back? Mike stiffened at that thought. The idea of the children's father trying to return filled him with a new sense of caution. Rachel added quietly, "He's not a good man, Mike. When he gets angry, he says things. He does things. He's not stable." "We'll deal with that if it happens," Mike said firmly. "Right now, the storm is our main problem." Rachel nodded again and moved closer to the children. An hour passed slowly. Mike checked the heater again and noticed the flame weakening. "Fuel's running low," he said. "We'll need to let it rest soon, or it will run out completely." Rachel looked panicked. "But the cold," Mike put a hand up. "We'll rotate it. Turn it off for a while, then on again. Keep the kids covered. Keep them close to Buddy." She exhaled shakily. "Okay." Mike turned the heater off. Immediately the cold grew sharper. The air turned still and heavy. Buddy adjusted his position and wrapped himself around all three children, like he understood exactly what was happening. "Good boy," Rachel whispered, gently touching Buddy's head. A sudden loud noise came from outside, a heavy thump. Mike and Buddy both turned their heads instantly. "What was that?" Rachel whispered, her voice tightening with fear. Mike moved quietly to the door and opened it a few inches. Snow blew in. He squinted into the darkness. Nothing moved, but there were fresh footprints leading toward the garage, large footprints. Mike closed the door slowly and locked it. Rachel's voice cracked as she asked, "Is someone out there?" Mike looked at the sleeping children, at Buddy, and then at Rachel. "Yeah," he said, "someone's out there." The storm continued to howl, hiding whoever, or whatever, was walking around in the snow. For now, all they could do was wait and stay alert. The garage stayed cold even with the blankets, and the small heater turned on and off in careful rotations. The sound of the storm outside never stopped. It roared against the metal walls, and the wind occasionally made the roof creak. Emma, Noah, and Lily slept close together beside Buddy, who kept shifting to make sure he touched all three kids with his warm body. Rachel sat with her knees pulled up to her chest, hugging herself for warmth, while she kept her eyes on the children. Mike stood by the door, staring at the footprints he had seen earlier. They were large, heavy prints, made by boots, not shoes, and the distance between each print suggested a tall adult man with a strong stride. Rachel watched him nervously. "Do you think it's him?" Mike didn't answer right away. He wasn't sure, but he had seen too many things in his life to ignore a threat. "It might be," he said finally, "or it could be someone else stuck in the storm. Either way, we stay careful." Rachel swallowed hard. He wasn't always violent. When we first met, he was kind, but after he lost his job, things changed. He gambled, he drank, he yelled at the kids. When he gets stressed, he becomes unpredictable. Mike nodded without turning around. "Some men break under pressure. I've seen it in the army. Doesn't excuse anything, though." Rachel lowered her head. "No, it doesn't." Mike checked his phone again. Still no signal. He sighed. "We need daylight. When the storm slows down, I'll try to get out of here and find help." Rachel shook her head quickly. "No, don't leave us alone." Mike looked at her. Her face was pale, and her eyes were wide with fear. She looked exhausted, cold, and overwhelmed. "I won't go far," he said, "but we need medical help, and the kids need it soon. Emma especially." Rachel reached out and touched Emma's cheek gently. "I know. She was born smaller than the others. She's always been fragile." Buddy lifted his head and let out a soft growl toward the door. Mike tensed. "He's back," he whispered. Rachel's breath hitched. She grabbed Lily and pulled her close, shaking. Mike moved to the door again, slowly opened it a crack, and looked out. Snow blew in, hitting his face. At first, he saw nothing but white. Then he spotted movement, a shadow moving between the trees. A man. "Someone's out there," Mike said. Rachel stiffened. "Is it him? Is it my husband?" "I can't see his face," Mike replied quietly, "but he's walking toward the garage." Buddy growled louder this time, deeper and more protective. Rachel whispered, "Mike, please, what do we do?" Mike closed the door gently and locked it. "Stay behind me. Keep the kids together." He looked around quickly for anything he could use as a weapon. He found an old tire iron on the shelf, grabbed it, and held it firmly. A heavy knock hit the door, making the metal vibrate. Rachel gasped and covered her mouth. Another knock, louder. "Open up!" a man shouted through the door. His voice was rough, deep, and filled with anger. "I know you're in there." Rachel's eyes widened. She whispered, "That's him." Mike tightened his grip on the tire iron. The man outside banged on the door again. "Rachel, I know you can hear me. You have my kids. Open the damn door," Buddy barked loudly, standing in front of the children like a guard. Rachel shook uncontrollably. "He'll hurt them. Mike, he's dangerous." The man's voice grew louder. "If you don't open this door, I'll break it down." Mike stepped closer to the door and spoke loudly but calmly. "This is private property. You need to leave." "Who the hell are you?" the man yelled. "Doesn't matter," Mike said. "There are children here. Back away." Instead of backing away, the man slammed his shoulder against the door. The metal rattled violently. Rachel covered the kids' ears, even though they were too weak to react. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Mike, please, don't let him take them," she whispered. Mike felt something heavy settle inside him. He had seen this type of man before, not just in war, back home too. Men who lost control, men who blamed everyone except themselves, men who put others in danger because they couldn't handle their own mistakes. He raised his voice. "Walk away while you still can." Another slam shook the door. The man cursed loudly. "Those are my kids. You're kidnapping them." Mike stepped back, holding the tire iron tightly. "Rachel, take the kids to the far corner. Stay low." Rachel hurried, dragging the children's towel-wrapped bodies and adjusting Buddy so he blocked them. Buddy bared his teeth slightly, ready to defend them. Mike listened. Footsteps crunched outside. The man walked around the garage, trying to find a weak spot. Mike looked at the walls. The garage was old. Some parts were sturdy, others weren't. Then the footsteps stopped right beside a window, one of the small side windows with only a single metal bar across it. Rachel saw where he was. "He's going to try that window," she whispered. The man punched the glass. Once, twice. The window cracked. Rachel covered her mouth to keep from screaming. Mike rushed to the side, raising the tire iron. "Get away from the window," the man shouted back. "Give me my kids!" He hit the window again. The glass shattered. A strong, thick arm reached in, trying to grab the metal bar inside to pull himself through. Mike didn't hesitate. He struck the arm with the tire iron. The man shouted in pain and pulled his arm back immediately. "You're making a mistake," the man yelled. "You can't keep them from me." Mike stood by the broken window, shoulders tense, breathing heavily. He didn't want to hurt anyone, but he wasn't going to let a dangerous man take helpless children. "Leave," Mike said firmly. "The storm is bad. You need help. If you keep doing this, you're going to get yourself killed out here." "I don't need your help," the man roared. "Those kids are mine." He punched the wall once more. Then the footsteps moved away slowly. For several seconds, no one spoke. The only sound was the storm. Rachel sobbed quietly into her hands. "He won't stop, Mike. He'll come back. He always comes back." Mike lowered the tire iron and looked at her. "We'll protect them, all of them, but we need a plan." Rachel wiped her eyes. "What kind of plan?" Mike looked at the broken window, then at the children. "Tomorrow morning, if the weather allows it," he said, "we're leaving this place. We're taking the kids somewhere safe. He won't stop unless someone stops him, and right now we're trapped. We need a doctor. We need law enforcement, and we need more help than what this garage can give us." Rachel nodded slowly, though her fear didn't fade. Mike checked on the kids again. Their skin was still cold, but their breathing was steadier. Emma moved her fingers slightly, which made Rachel let out a small cry of relief. Buddy curled even tighter around them. Mike sat near the door again, watching the darkness outside through the small crack. The storm made visibility almost impossible, but he knew the man was still out there somewhere, waiting, planning. But so was Mike. The long night continued, but no one slept. Not anymore. Not with danger only a few feet away. The sky finally began to lighten, though the storm had not fully ended. The snow was still falling, but it wasn't as heavy as the night before. The wind was calmer, blowing in steady gusts instead of violent bursts. A gray morning settled over Ridgeview County, making everything look washed out and tired. Inside the garage, nobody had slept. Mike stood guard most of the night, keeping his ear close to the door. Buddy stayed awake too, occasionally growling softly whenever the wind carried unfamiliar sounds. Rachel held the children close, whispering to them, and checking their breathing in the dim light. By dawn, all 3 kids were still alive, but weak. Their skin had warmed, but they were far from healthy. Emma looked the weakest. Noah and Lily moved a bit more, making small noises, but they clearly needed real medical care soon. "We can't stay here any longer," Mike said as he checked the window he had blocked with a piece of wood. "He might come back, and the heater won't last much more." Rachel nodded nervously. Her face was pale, but her eyes were focused. "Where do we go?" Mike rubbed his hands together, trying to think. "There's a farm a few miles east. Belongs to a man named Harris Dalton. He's older, quiet, and he owes me a favor. He helped me when Buddy got hurt last year. If anyone would help us, it's him." Rachel looked uncertain. "Is it far?" "Far enough to be hard," Mike admitted, "but close enough that we have a chance. And Harris has a truck. Once we get there, we can call for help, take the kids to a hospital, and deal with your husband properly." Rachel's shoulders relaxed a little. "Okay, if you think it's safe." "It's safer than staying here," Mike said, "but we have to move fast." He prepared the Harley. Snow clung to the wheels and frame. The engine was cold and stiff, but when he turned the key, the bike coughed and shook. After a few tries, it roared just loud enough to show it still had some life in it. "Good girl," Mike muttered to the motorcycle. "Don't quit on me." He turned to Rachel. "Bundle the kids tight. Keep Buddy close to them. We'll need his heat." Rachel wrapped Emma, Noah, and Lily in towels, Mike's jacket, and whatever cloth they had. Buddy curled beside them, pressing his body against their legs. The kids reacted with faint movements at his warmth. "You ready?" Mike asked. Rachel swallowed nervously. "Yes, let's go." Mike helped her onto the bike. Rachel sat behind him, holding the children carefully. Buddy returned to his carrier, though he didn't like being separated from the kids even for a moment. Mike opened the garage door halfway, and a wave of cold air rushed in. Snow covered the ground in thick layers. The tracks from the stranger's footprints were gone, washed away by the night's snowfall. "Maybe he left," Rachel whispered hopefully. "Don't count on it," Mike replied. His voice was steady, but his eyes scanned the area. "He's angry and unstable. Men like that don't walk away easily." Rachel hugged the children tighter. Mike pushed the Harley forward, letting the engine warm. Once outside, he kicked the door shut. "Hold on," he said. The Harley crawled forward through the snow. It wasn't fast, but it moved. The tires dug through the slush, the engine straining with every push. Mike kept his eyes open, following a narrow path between trees. Rachel sat close, leaning slightly to balance the bike. After several minutes, Rachel whispered, "Mike, thank you for everything." "Let's get you all safe first," Mike said. "Then we can talk." Buddy barked once as if agreeing. They drove slowly, the storm biting at their faces, the cold trying to creep past the layers they wore. The children were silent except for small, weak sounds. Emma felt so light in Rachel's arms that the mother grew more nervous with every minute. "She's breathing," Rachel whispered repeatedly. "She's cold, but she's breathing." "Keep her wrapped tight," Mike said. "Harris's place isn't far." But just as he said that, Buddy suddenly barked sharply. His body stiffened. Mike's stomach dropped. "Damn it! What's wrong, boy?" Buddy growled, staring back the way they came. Mike didn't stop the bike, but he turned his head. There was movement behind them, far, but close enough to fear. A dark figure running in the snow. "It's him," Rachel said, trembling. "He found us." Mike gritted his teeth and pushed the Harley harder. "We need to get moving." The man behind them shouted something, though the wind swallowed most of his voice. He stumbled forward, fighting the snow, hands clenched into fists. "He's gaining on us," Rachel cried. "He won't catch us," Mike said firmly. "Not today." The Harley struggled, but kept going. The path narrowed, forcing Mike to steer carefully. The trees around them were tall, their branches heavy with snow. The wind pushed between the trunks like icy breath. Buddy barked again, louder this time. Mike saw the shadow behind them slip, fall, then get back up. The man kept coming, limping slightly. "He's hurt," Mike said. "Probably from last night, but he's not stopping." Rachel closed her eyes. "He always does this. He blames everyone but himself. He thinks he owns us." "Not anymore," Mike said. "He won't touch them." They continued forward. The snow got deeper, making the bike harder to control. After several long minutes, a small wooden fence appeared through the trees. "That's Harris's property," Mike said. "We're close." Rachel let out a breath of hope, But Buddy barked one more time, and Mike saw a second figure appear behind the first. A second person? Rachel whispered, horrified. Who is that? Mike narrowed his eyes. The second man was dressed in a thick winter coat with a hood pulled low. He kept his distance from the first man. Looks like your husband isn't alone, Mike said. He got help. Rachel shook her head. I don't know who that is. Could be someone he owes money, or someone he hired. Doesn't matter, Mike said. They don't get to us. He rode hard, pushing the Harley to its limit. The engine growled loudly, fighting the cold. Rachel held on, shielding the kids with her body. Buddy pressed against the side, barking nonstop. We're almost there, Mike shouted. Finally, the farmhouse appeared, a long wooden building with smoke rising from the chimney. Next to it stood a large barn and a supply shed. Chickens huddled under a small roof, and a tractor sat half buried in snow. Mike aimed the Harley straight for the barn. As they reached the yard, the farmhouse door opened and a tall man stepped out. He was in his late 50s, with a thick gray beard and strong shoulders. He wore heavy work clothes and snow boots. This was Harris Dalton, a man of few words but steady hands. He looked surprised to see Mike, then his eyes widened when he saw Rachel and the children. What in the world? Harris started. No time, Mike yelled. Help us get inside. Harris didn't ask another question. He moved quickly, opening the barn doors wide. Mike drove the Harley inside, and Harris shut the doors behind them. Buddy jumped out immediately and took position near the kids. Rachel slid off the bike, holding Emma close, tears streaming down her face from fear and exhaustion. Please, help us. The kids need warmth. They need help. Harris took one look at the children and nodded. Bring them to the house. The fire's going strong. Mike grabbed Noah and Lily while Rachel carried Emma. Buddy ran ahead, barking toward the farmhouse door, as if telling Harris's family to prepare. Harris opened the door, letting a wave of warm air spill out. Inside was a large living room with a stone fireplace, a thick rug, and several handmade wooden chairs. A kettle boiled on the stove. As they entered, Mike looked back through a small window. In the distance, barely visible through the snow, he saw two figures approaching the property line. His jaw tightened. They found us, he said quietly. But Harris placed a hand on Mike's shoulder. Let's get the children warm first. Whoever those men are, they'll have to go. The warmth of Harris Dalton's farmhouse felt like stepping into another world. The fire in the stone fireplace burned strong, filling the room with a steady heat that reached every corner. Wooden shelves lined the walls, full of tools, blankets, and jars of dried food. A large rug covered most of the floor, and the thick curtains blocked the cold from the windows. Rachel carried Emma to the couch near the fire and carefully laid her down. Mike set Noah and Lily beside her. Buddy immediately curled near them, his fur steaming slightly as the cold melted off him. The kids reacted with weak whimpers, but at least they responded. Harris knelt beside them. Up close, he looked exactly like the kind of man who lived far from the city. Tall, broad shoulders, rough hands, thick gray beard. His eyes were steady and serious, but not unkind. They're freezing, Harris said after a quick look, but they're alive. We need to warm them slowly. Sudden heat can shock the body. Rachel nodded quickly. I used to work in a clinic. I can help. Harris pointed to the kitchen. There are clean towels in the drawer by the stove. Warm them by the fire, then wrap the kids. Rachel hurried off, her legs shaky from exhaustion. Mike looked out the small window again. Two figures moved beyond the fence, slow but determined. They were still far enough not to be an immediate threat, but close enough to keep everyone on edge. They're coming, Mike said quietly. Harris rose to his feet. Let me see. He walked to the window and squinted into the snowy distance. His expression hardened. Who are they? Her husband, Mike said. And someone else. Not sure who the second guy is. Harris nodded slowly. And I'm guessing they aren't here to apologize. Not even close, Mike replied. The first guy tried to break into the garage last night. He's unstable, dangerous. Harris pulled in a deep breath and turned toward a cabinet near the hallway. He opened it and pulled out a pump-action shotgun, worn but well-maintained. Rachel returned with warm towels and froze when she saw the gun. Are they already here? Not yet, Harris said, but they're coming. We need to be ready. Rachel wrapped Lily in a warm towel with shaking hands. I don't want violence. I just want them to be safe. Mike crouched beside her. I know, and we'll avoid violence if possible, but your husband isn't reasonable. You said so yourself. Rachel nodded reluctantly. Harris checked the shotgun's chamber and loaded 2 shells. I'm not looking for trouble. I'm not shooting unless they try to force their way in. But if they cross the line, I won't let them inside this house. Rachel swallowed hard. Do you think they'll try? Mike didn't sugarcoat it. Yes. The farmhouse door shook suddenly as a strong gust of wind hit it. Rachel jumped. Buddy growled. Harris shut the cabinet and locked it. First, things first, he said. Let's secure the house. The next 10 minutes were a blur of urgent, focused action. Harris closed all curtains. Mike locked every door and checked every window. Rachel kept warming the children. Buddy stayed alert. Pacing between the door and the kids, Emma began moving a little more, her tiny fingers twitching. Noah let out a soft cry when the towel touched his skin. Lily made small, confused sounds. Their breathing was still weak, but much better than earlier. Rachel sobbed quietly, relieved. They're coming back. I can see it. She kissed their heads repeatedly. Thank you. Thank you. Mike nodded. We're not out of danger yet. But they're fighting. That's a good sign. The house creaked, but this time the sound wasn't from wind. It was heavier, slower, deliberate. Someone stepped onto the wooden porch. Buddy barked sharply, planting himself between the door and the couch where the children lay. Harris raised the shotgun. Stay behind me. Rachel grabbed Mike's arm. Please don't let him in. Mike squeezed her shoulder. I won't. Another heavy footstep, then a loud knock. Rachel! A man shouted. Open this door right now! It was the same voice as the night before, angry, loud, and desperate. Rachel froze. Her body trembled so hard she nearly dropped the towel warming Emma. Stay back, Mike whispered. Her husband slammed his fist against the door. I know you're in there. You think you can hide my kids from me? Let me in, or I'll break the door. Harris stepped forward, standing at an angle where the gun wouldn't be visible through any crack. This is private property, Harris said loudly. His voice was deep and strong. You need to leave. Who the hell are you? The husband shouted. Someone who doesn't tolerate threats, Harris replied. This isn't your house. You're not welcome here. The man cursed loudly and tried the doorknob. When it didn't budge, he kicked the door. The wooden frame shook. Back off, Mike yelled. There are children in here. I know, the man screamed. They're mine. You left them in a van during a storm, Mike shot back. You don't get to call yourself their father after that. Shut up, the man yelled. You don't know anything about us. Behind him, the second man finally spoke. His voice was lower and calmer. Come on, man. This is stupid. You said we were here to talk, not this. The husband turned on him. I hired you. You don't tell me what to do. Ah, so that explained it. The second guy wasn't a friend. He was someone paid to help him. The second man raised both hands. I didn't sign up for breaking into farms. If the cops get called, I'm not getting dragged into your mess. Rachel whispered shakily, that sounds like something he'd do. Drag someone else into trouble. The husband ignored everyone. He shouted again. Rachel, open this door! I'm your husband! Rachel raised her head and shouted through the door, her voice shaking but firm. We're done! Leave us alone! Silence, then the sound of pure rage. You think you can just walk away from me? The husband roared. Those kids belong to me. Mike stepped closer to the door. If you take one more step toward this house, it won't end well. The door exploded with a powerful kick. Not broken, but close. Harris tightened his grip on the shotgun. Last warning, he said calmly. Step away. Another kick. The wood cracked. Buddy barked uncontrollably, teeth bared. Rachel covered the children with her body, crying. Mike braced himself. Just as the husband pulled back his leg for another kick, the second man suddenly grabbed him from behind. That's enough, he yelled. The cops are gonna come if you keep this up. Let go of me, the husband screamed. No, the second man said firmly. You're on your own. I'm not getting arrested. He shoved the husband into the snow. Mike and Harris watched from the window. The husband scrambled to his feet, shouting curses. But the second man was already walking away fast, yelling over his shoulder. I'm done with you. Don't ever call me again. The husband turned back toward the house, breathing heavily, shaking with anger. But now he was alone, and tired, and freezing. He stared at the door. Harris raised the shotgun and chambered around loud enough that the sound cut through the storm. Try it, Harris said through the door. The husband hesitated. His shoulders rose and fell as he breathed hard. Then finally he turned away, storming through the snow toward the road. Mike didn't move until the man disappeared into the trees. Rachel collapsed to her knees, sobbing into her hands. Buddy rushed to her side, whining and nudging her with his nose. Harris lowered the gun. He'll think twice before coming back. Mike exhaled slowly. We need to call the police as soon as we get a signal. Rachel wiped her face. Thank you. Thank you both. I don't know how to thank you enough. Mike shook his head. Just focus on the kids. They need you. The storm began to quiet even more. The wind slowed. Snow fell softer. Morning was still gray and cold, but for the first time it felt like things might be turning in their favor. They just had to hold on a little longer. The storm finally weakened by early afternoon. The sky was still gray, but the wind had quieted enough for the snow to fall straight downward instead of sideways. The farmhouse felt calmer too, though the tension in the air hadn't faded completely. Rachel sat near the fire, holding Emma in her arms while watching Noah and Lily sleep beside Buddy. The warmth had helped a lot. The children were still weak, but their breathing was smoother and their skin looked less pale. Every small sign of improvement made Rachel's shoulders relax a little more. Mike stood by the window with Harris, watching the tree line carefully. You think he's really gone? Mike asked. For now, Harris replied. A man walking alone in this weather won't get very far. He'll need shelter somewhere. Could be he went back to town. Could be he's hiding, but I doubt he'll try again today. Mike nodded, but he kept the tire iron close just in case. Rachel looked up from the couch. We can't wait forever, she said softly. The kids need a doctor, and I need to report everything before he spins it into a different story. You're right, Mike said. We need help. Real help. Harris took out an old radio from a drawer. It had a long antenna and several knobs. This thing's outdated, he said, but sometimes it picks up sheriff channels when phones don't. Rachel watched nervously as Harris turned the knobs. The radio crackled. Static filled the room. Mike leaned closer. Nothing at first, then a faint voice. IE Patrol, East Road, snow blocking. Harris adjusted the dial slightly. Repeat, if anyone can hear, report emergencies. That's them, Harris said. The county sheriff. Mike grabbed the radio microphone. Sheriff's office, this is Mike Miller. We have 3 injured children and a woman in danger at Harris Dalton's farm. We need assistance. Static answered him. Rachel's face dropped. It's not connecting. Try again, Mike said. Harris lifted the antenna higher and angled it toward the window. Mike pressed the button again. This is Mike Miller, emergency at Dalton Farm. We have 3 children suffering from cold exposure and a mother fleeing a violent spouse. We need help immediately. This time, a shaky voice came through. Miller, do you copy? Repeat. Do you copy? Mike felt a wave of relief. Sheriff, yes, I copy. We need assistance now. Oh, the storm cleared enough. Deputy on the way. ETA 1 hour. Rachel covered her face with her hands. She exhaled shakily. Thank God. Help is coming, Mike said. Just hold on a little longer. Buddy barked softly as if agreeing. Harris went to prepare warm tea and blankets while Mike sat beside Rachel. He gently checked Emma's pulse and temperature. She's still cold but stable, he said. She was always the smallest, Rachel whispered. She had trouble breathing. When she was born, the doctors warned she might need more care than her siblings. Mike nodded. We'll make sure she gets it. Rachel bit her lip, gathering strength before speaking again. When he crashed the van, I thought he would at least help the children, but he didn't even check. He just left. Mike didn't interrupt. She continued. He used to say he loved them, but whenever he got angry, he only thought about himself. I tried to leave before, but he kept convincing me he would change. Mike sighed. Some people never do. Rachel's eyes welled with tears again. He told me once that if life got too hard, he'd rather walk away than deal with the responsibility. I didn't think he meant it literally. Mike kept his voice steady. You're safe now, and we're going to make sure the law hears exactly what happened. Harris returned with warm mugs. Drink this, he said kindly. You'll need strength for the sheriff. Rachel nodded and took a small sip. Time passed slowly. The snow outside continued to lighten, revealing more of the land. The world looked quieter and calmer, but the fear still lingered in Rachel's eyes. Then Buddy stood up suddenly. His ears perked. He stared at the window, tail stiff. Mike looked at him. "What is it, boy?" Buddy barked once, alert, not panicked. Harris walked to the window and peered out. A vehicle approached slowly through the snow, a county sheriff's SUV. "They're here," Harris said. Rachel stood, clutching Emma close. The SUV pulled up near the porch. A man in uniform stepped out. He was in his early 40s, average height, with a strong build and a neatly trimmed beard. His uniform was thick winter gear with a badge on the chest. This was Deputy Carl Thompson, a well-known officer in Ridgeview. He had a reputation for being calm, reasonable, and fair. He often helped settle disputes and was respected for not jumping to conclusions. Mike opened the door cautiously. "Deputy?" "Mike," the deputy greeted, brushing snow off his jacket. "We got your radio call. The storm slowed us down, but we're here now." He stepped inside and immediately saw the 3 children and Rachel. He paused. His expression softened with concern. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Rachel hugged Emma closer. I am now." Deputy Thompson kneeling beside the children. He checked their breathing and temperature like he had medical training. "They need to get to the hospital soon. We'll arrange transport, but first I need to know what happened." Rachel sat on the couch. Her hands shook, but her voice stayed steady. "My husband crashed the van. Then he left us. He took the kids and drove off again. I ran through the storm looking for them. I thought he might have abandoned them. Mike here, he's found them freezing in the snow." Deputy Thompson turned to Mike. "You found the children in the storm?" "Yeah," Mike said. "Buddy led me to the van. They were barely breathing." Buddy barked softly, as if confirming the story. Harris added, "The father came here this morning trying to force his way inside. I had to warn him off." Deputy Thompson's jaw tightened. "He tried to break in? Multiple times," Mike said. "He was violent. He hired another man to come with him, but that guy left when things got out of hand." Rachel swallowed. "I'm scared he'll come back, or he'll lie to the police." Deputy Thompson shook his head. "Ma'am, we'll take your statement. There's enough evidence already to hold him for questioning, and if what you say checks out, you'll be protected." He pulled out a small notepad. "Tell me everything from the beginning." Rachel explained everything again, from the crash to being left in the snow, to Mike saving the children, to the confrontation in the garage and at the farm. Deputy Thompson wrote carefully, nodding. "This matches some reports we've received about him before. The sheriff's department has been aware of complaints from neighbors." Rachel looked surprised. "I never filed a complaint. I was scared." "You wouldn't be the first," the deputy said gently. Mike handed over the children's bracelet, the initials in the clothes, and described what he saw in the van. The deputy collected all evidence, placing them carefully in sealed bags. "We'll need to take you all to the station once the paramedics arrive," he said. "Your children go to the hospital first. You'll follow." Rachel nodded, relief and fear mixing in her eyes. Outside, sirens approached slowly, a rescue team coming through the snow. Rachel hugged Emma one more time. "You're going to be okay, my little ones." Mike placed a hand on Rachel's shoulder. "We'll get this right. We'll make sure he can't hurt you again." Deputy Thompson stepped outside to meet the paramedics. Harris turned to Mike. "You did the right thing, son." Mike let out a long breath. For the first time since he found the van, he felt the weight lift from his chest. But he also knew it wasn't over yet. Not until the law finished what they had started. The next several days passed slowly but steadily. The storm cleared. The roads reopened. The children were taken to the hospital in the nearest city, where doctors treated them for cold exposure and dehydration. Rachel stayed by their side the entire time, barely sleeping, her anxiety rising and falling with every update the doctors gave. Mike visited them daily. Buddy came along and sat quietly by the hospital beds, letting the children touch his soft fur. Lily liked to grip Buddy's ear while she slept. Noah giggled weakly whenever Buddy licked his hand. Emma, still recovering, opened her eyes more each day and seemed calm whenever Buddy lay near her feet. By the 4th day, the kids were stable. By the 7th, they were strong enough to sit up and eat on their own. But there was still another storm to face, the legal one. Rachel's husband had been found 2 towns away, trying to hide in an abandoned cabin. He resisted at first, but hunger and exhaustion forced him to surrender to the deputies. He was taken into custody and charged with child endangerment, attempted forced entry, domestic abuse, and abandoning minors during a life-threatening storm. A hearing was scheduled at the county courthouse. On the morning of the hearing, Rachel stood outside the courthouse holding Emma's hand. Mike stood beside her, wearing a clean jacket and jeans. Buddy sat at his feet, alert as always. Harris was there too, wearing his best flannel shirt and sturdy boots. Rachel looked extremely nervous. "What if he lies?" she asked quietly. "What if they believe him?" Mike shook his head. "He left the kids in the snow, and he tried to break into Harris's house. That's not something the court will ignore." Harris added, "And you've got witnesses, evidence. The deputy saw the kids' condition." Rachel held her children close as they entered the courthouse. The building was warm and orderly, with polished floors and wooden benches lining the hallway. Inside the hearing room, several people already waited, including Deputy Thompson and a few local residents who knew about the case. A county reporter scribbled notes on a pad. The judge, Preston Hale, entered the room. He was in his late 50s, serious-looking but fair, with sharp eyes behind thin glasses. Everyone rose when he walked in. "Be seated," he said. Rachel sat beside Mike, her hands trembling. Buddy lay quietly under the bench at their feet. The judge reviewed some papers before speaking. "Today's hearing concerns the welfare of 3 minors, Emma Moore, Noah Moore, and Lily Moore, and the incident involving their father, Jacob Moore. We will hear statements and review the evidence." Jacob Moore was brought in, wrists cuffed. He looked thinner, angrier, eyes sunken from lack of sleep. When he saw Rachel holding the children, his jaw tightened. The judge began with Rachel. "Mrs. Moore, please explain what happened the day of the storm." Rachel swallowed and began speaking. Her voice was shaky at first, but it grew stronger as she described everything. The fight in the van, the crash, being thrown into the snow, waking alone, searching for her children, the fear that almost broke her, and finally finding them safe with Mike and Buddy. Jacob constantly shook his head, muttering under his breath, but the judge silenced him each time. Next, the judge called Mike. Mike stepped forward. His posture was straight, his tone steady. "I found the kids in an overturned van," he said. "They were freezing, barely moving. I carried them out, took them to shelter, kept them warm until help arrived. Buddy, my dog, helped keep them alive with his body heat." Buddy wagged his tail softly, unaware he was part of the testimony. The judge listened closely. "And the father?" Mike answered calmly. "He came to the garage that night, tried to force his way inside, was yelling, violent. He returned the next morning with another man. They tried again. Harris and I stopped them." Harris was called next. His deep voice carried power as he confirmed the events, explaining how the father tried to enter his home while the children were inside, and how he had to protect them. Deputy Thompson presented evidence collected from the scene: a torn bracelet with Emma's name, footprints in the snow, the condition of the kids upon rescue, and photographs of the overturned van. The courtroom stayed silent as each piece of evidence was shown. Finally, the judge turned to Jacob Moore. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Jacob stood, scowling. "They're my kids. She's lying. They're all lying. I didn't leave them. I never abandoned them. That guy," he pointed at Mike, "kidnapped them. He wants credit for saving them when he took them from me." The judge stared at him. "You left your children in a crashed vehicle during a severe winter storm. You attempted to break into 2 properties. You endangered your wife and your children, and you hired someone to help you do it." Jacob's face turned red with anger. "They're mine!" Rachel clutched Emma closer. The child clung to her mother, burying her face into her shoulder. Lily started crying softly. Noah hugged Buddy for comfort. The judge sighed, folding his hands. "Mr. Moore, this court has heard enough." He lifted the document in front of him. "There is overwhelming evidence that you knowingly placed your children in danger, failed to provide care, and acted violently toward their mother and the rescuers." Jacob tried to speak again, but the guard beside him placed a hand on his arm, warning him to stay quiet. The judge continued, "Based on the facts, custody of the children is hereby granted to Rachel Moore. She will have full parental rights." Rachel gasped, tears spilling instantly. The judge then turned to Mike. "Mr. Miller," he said, "your intervention saved these children's lives. Rachel Moore has requested that you be recognized as a guardian support figure. While you are not a blood relative, your commitment, bravery, and ongoing involvement demonstrate a stable presence." Mike blinked, surprised. Rachel turned to him and whispered, "I trust you. I want you in their lives." The judge nodded. "The court grants you official support guardian status. You may assist with child care, medical decisions in emergencies, and continued protection." Harris smiled proudly. Buddy wagged his tail as if he understood. The judge delivered the final words with firm clarity. These children are safe now, and those who endangered them will be held accountable. The gavel struck once, echoing through the room. The hearing was over. As people began to stand, Rachel faced Mike with red-rimmed eyes. "Thank you for everything. I wouldn't have my children if not for you." Mike shook his head gently. "You're their mother. You fought for them. I just helped." Emma reached a hand toward him. Da, she mumbled softly. Mike's breath caught. Rachel's eyes widened with emotion. She's been trying to speak more these days. Emma touched Mike's jacket, gripping the fabric with her tiny fingers. Mike. Mike crouched to meet her eyes. "Hey, little one, you're safe now." Buddy pressed against him, tail wagging. The future was still uncertain. Rachel had a long road ahead. The children needed time to heal. Mike still carried his own battles inside, but as they walked out of the courthouse together, Rachel holding the kids, Mike walking beside her, and Buddy trotting proudly at their feet, it felt like the beginning of something new, something hopeful, something like a family. Sometimes miracles don't come as thunder or light from the sky. Sometimes they arrive on a broken motorcycle in the middle of a snowstorm through the hands of a tired man who simply chose not to walk away. Maybe that was God's work, not loud, not dramatic, but quiet and human. In our everyday lives, we are given the same choice, to turn away or to step forward when someone needs us most. If this story moved your heart, share it with someone who might need hope today. Leave a comment and tell us what you believe miracles look like. And if you believe, may God watch over you, protect your family, and guide your path through every storm. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and walk with us on the next story.